Hello there, this is DBT, and these are the rooms. And alright, let's continue playing some more Asphalt 9 on Nintendo Switch, and today we're gonna be driving this peculiarity of the car, the Porsche 911 GT Coupe, which looks absolutely killer with this body kit. The wing could be a little bit bigger, but still, it looks very nice, and yet, this is a car that you will normally not see in multiplayer at all. And the reason for that is because it's a very basic Class B car. It's one of the starter cars in the game, so it's not gonna perform great in multiplayer by any means. So then, why am I gonna use it? Well, first of all, because I am a little bit of a contrarian and I like driving cars that may not be amazing, but also because there was a change recently in the game which allows me to use this car in a much more comfortable way. So let's talk about that. Now, in multiplayer, it has always been the case that based on the league that you're on is the class of cars that you can use. Bronze, you can only use cars of Class D. In Silver, where I am right now, you can use either Class D or C. In Gold, you can use D, C, or B. In Platinum, all the way to Class A. And Legend, all the way to Class S. Now, that means that me on Silver right now, if I want to use a car of Class D, I can use it, it's not a problem. In Silver, I could also use Class C, normally. But if I want to use a car of Class B, I need to be in the Gold League. And it goes like that. If I'm in Platinum and I want to use Class S, I absolutely need to be actually in Legend. Platinum would only allow me to use Class A. Now, this has always been the case. However, as I mentioned, there was a change recently that was introduced in the current season, which is the Around the World season, where there is a peculiarity on the pool of cars that you can use. Now, this was further adjusted on the Switch version compared to the global, but we're going to talk a little bit about it. So over here, for example, in Bronze League, you will notice that most of it's Class D cars, right? Not a big issue, but for example, here's the Class C car, just mixed with them, because it's a very bad Class C. And for example, also in the Silver League, where I am right now, you can see that I can use already Class B, C, well, C is normal, but there's another Class B, like the 4GT, even a Class A, like the Aston Martin Vulcan. And this continues through the other leagues. You can see, for example, here in the Gold League that I get to use, where are they? The LaFerrari, which is a Class A, or the Bentley, also Class A, where normally it would only be Class B. Same situation in Platinum, where it should be Class A. I can already use some bad Class S like Centenario. Now, I already made a video using the Centenario because this change, like I mentioned, was already introduced, but Gameloft further tweaked it in here on the Switch so that it would be a bit more fair, and actually they made a whole table as to how these cars are going to be rotating through the seasons. But either way, let's get into some races and we can talk a bit more about it, because I really want to drive this thing. Now, for a Class B, it has pretty decent speed at 328, acceleration very meh as usual, handling bad in Nitro kinda not good at all. But let's see what it can do when it competes against Class C. And by the way, the sound might be a little bit off because of the same issue that I reported before, that in this last patch of the game, they introduced this sound issue, sound bug, where engines are incredibly loud, which normally is something that I would enjoy, but it definitely is bugged out and some other sounds are completely drowned. It's kinda weird. I tried to set it up the best that I could, and I think the volumes are alright, but yeah, it might still sound off, so sorry about that. But yeah, so right now we are in Ghost season. It's not Slipstream, it's just a straight up Ghost, which is kind of fun because I think this is one of the most skill-based multiplayer series where it no longer, oh Jesus Christ, no longer matters, oh look at this drift, if you're following someone's slipstream or if someone knocked you down, or none of that. This is all about just drive your best and hope that you can do good. But because I'm very early, or rather very low in the Silver League, right now I'm going to be facing a lot of opponents from the previous league, from the Bronze, which is going to be a lot of Class D cars, but it should be alright. And even then, with this whole system change where, I don't know if it's made so that it's a bit more fair or what is that, but this whole new system of mixing the ranks, or rather the leagues of the cars based on, oh Jesus, the class of the car based on the league that you're on, I think it's an interesting change, like I mentioned before, where I was able to use the Centenario against Class A cars. I think this is a very interesting thing. The only problem remains to be that there's a bunch of cars that people have, you know, spent a lot of tokens or even money into unlocking, and they cannot use. But alright, first race, and yeah, look at that. It was all DS and another 911, and actually Volkswagen XL Sport. Alright, that's not very strong, but okay. Ooh, this is where things get difficult or interesting because there's a Vulcan. A Vulcan which is Class A. Granted, basic Class A, but Class A nonetheless. And in spite of the fact that even by being a low class, or rather a low rank of its class, it's supposed to be a bad car. It will be a bad car against Class A cars, but when you put that against Class D, Class C, Class B, it actually may perform pretty alright. So I'm curious to see what we get once I'm racing against this dude. But alright. And another, as I was mentioning at the very start, it is very curious for me to finally drive this thing. I mean, I could always drive it, you know? It's not that anybody was prohibiting me from driving this thing in the previous multiplayer style or multiplayer league. But it is kind of... I do like driving underdogs, but for the most part, you know that this game is extremely grindy, and you want to get as many W's as you can in order to get as much points as possible to get to your reward. So there was very little incentive to experiment with these bad cars, but now that these bad cars are actually an integral part of the multiplayer experience where they may actually perform a little bit better, that's something that it's very interesting for me. And I don't know what was that guy that I just passed, but let's go! And honestly, for a Class B car competing against Class E, this car is considerably quick. Nothing amazing, but considerably quick, so that's pretty dope. The drift, as usual, as it is the case with a lot of the starter cars, is pretty bad, so you kind of have to make the most out of, what is it called? Open gasless drift is what some people call it. Where on the Nintendo Switch, and I believe it's the only platform in which you can do this, you can drift without pressing gas, and you know, you set it up to manual acceleration, and you release the gas button as you're drifting, and you're gonna drift even wider, but you lose less speed. So that is a peculiar technique only available on the Switch. While you can use also manual acceleration on the platforms, I don't believe that the gasless drift is really a thing. So there's that. Alright, so I beat the Acura NSX, which is a very strong Class C car. And where was it? Oh no, man, I wanted that Vulcan to race. Fine, whatever. Okay, now this one is gonna get also peculiar. We may not have the Vulcan in the race, but we do have a couple of Arenera Husarias, which, in case you're not aware, it is, I believe, the straight up fastest Class C car in the entire game. It's so fast that it rivals low Class A cars in terms of speed, so it's kind of peculiar. Which actually kind of makes sense when we consider the whole thing of the Vulcan being a low Class A that you can play over here. So that's kind of curious. But alright, let's see what else can my poor Porsche 911 GTS or whatever it's called can do. Now the Husaria does have a bit of a problem where drifting in general ain't amazing. Well, not the drift speed isn't amazing from what I remember. So it's not exactly an agile car. You need to put a lot of effort into keeping the top speed. So there is that. Alright, I'm in first place. Can I keep it? Can I keep it? Come on, top speed. Let's go, baby! Oh, yeah! Alright, I'll say that it was because this is not a good track for the Husarias, but still, that's a W. A bunch of NSX. There's the... Oh, there's only one Husaria? I thought there were two. Well, there's two Elise and a Rizvani Beast and Acura NSX. At least I beat the Husaria, right? It was only one, but still. Now, I did say that we were going to be driving that Porsche, but I really also wanted to drive the Vulcan, because look at it. Again, Class A, low Class A, but it's part of this league, so it's definitely allowed. And the top speed is considerably high, but it is a bit lower than that of the Husaria, but the acceleration should be much better. So I don't know, I'm really curious to see what this can do, so let's try it out. And honestly, not a bad time to do so, because I'm already getting close to the next league in which other selection of car can be used. You're gonna see already the Apollo IE. And granted, that's Class B, so technically I'm still using a car from a higher class but a lower rank. Does that make sense? Man, it just gets a little bit confusing over time to be like, are we talking about the class, the rank, the league? So much terminology that sometimes my words just get messy. But hey, taking so far the lead. Now, there's always the possibility that there's gonna be a bunch of people that are just farming this with a turbo controller or whatever, meaning that they're actually not driving the cars themselves. They just leave it in touch drive and just constantly pressing the A button so that when the race finishes, whatever position they finish that, the next one begins and they can continue doing that in order to get a tiny bit of reputation without having to, not reputation, excuse me, series score, although reputation too, without actually having to play the game. They can just leave it running in the background while they do something else and still farm some point. So I don't know what to make of this, but hey, I'm gonna proceed to take the W over here, unless I really mess it up. But man, this is much like the case of the Centenario in the previous video that I made on this topic. It is so good to use these cars that normally would not have any use, and I don't know why I was aiming for the other route when it is obvious that there's only this route to go to. Okay, fine, whatever. But again, it's really curious to finally be able to use these cars in multiplayer, because normally you wouldn't. And alright, Apollo IE, Husaria, IE, Asterion, another Vulcan, Resbani Beast, and an Idle Design. Huh, cool. And now, by having reached the next league, I have another selection of cars to use right now. And what I would love to do that, I want to continue using the Vulcan simply because I must. Come on. And I do believe that this is something that the China version of Asphalt 9 also did. Not necessarily mixing the leagues, or rather mixing the classes of cars, but instead what they did was to, well, reassign the classes of cars based on the general performance. Like, for example, this Vulcan, I don't believe that it's Class A, it might just be Class B. One case that I do remember very clearly is precisely the case of the Centenario, that in the China version, it is not a super low Class S, it is indeed, I believe, a mid-Class A, which is where the performance should put it at. So it is interesting that in a way, in a very roundabout way, they're doing something kind of similar in this version of the game with this multiplayer system. Now the real question is to figure out if people are actually gonna stick around to play this. Because like I mentioned earlier in the previous video, and even a year ago when a change similar to this, but not exactly the same, happened in the global version, that it is a little bit disconcerting to be jumping into multiplayer, which is the main focus of the game, and find out that you're not able to use the cars that you have grinded or paid money for or whatever in order to acquire. Like it's the case, for example, once I get to the next league, to the Platinum League, where I would use Class A and I would love to bring my SE18, but guess what? It is not part of the pool of cars for this particular series. So it's like, oh, all of that money or all of those tokens or all of that grind, whatever it was, I cannot use it because the car is not available, and that is a bit frustrating. But alright, there it is. Acura NSX, 2 LaFerraris, DBS Superleggera, NSX, Resbani Beast, and yeah, it makes sense that the DS Automobile will be last place, because I mean, that's Class D, that's also very slow, So as I was saying, it remains to be seen if people will actually want to stick around and play this version of multiplayer, if they're gonna enjoy it. But to me, it is definitely interesting. Oh boy, I mean, totally intended. It is very interesting to finally be able to play with these cars that normally, under no regular circumstances, you would be encouraged to use. Like I said, it was not that you couldn't use them before when the regular multiplayer system was in place, but now they actually have more of a chance, a more fair chance to get some decent result with them, and I think that's indeed a pretty interesting thing to see. And yeah, so far I have covered then the basic Class B car and the basic Class A and the basic Class S. The basic Class S being the Centenario in the previous video. So yeah, I definitely, if this multiplayer system remains in place, I'm gonna continue testing it, playing with cars that I would normally not use simply because, why not? Let's enjoy some of these cars that never see the light of day. Now, this race I only got third or fourth? Third. Okay, I'll take the third. So what beat me? Because they definitely shot ahead real quick. So yes, what was it? Aston Martin Superleggera and an Apollo IE, both objectively better cars than the Vulcan. So that's understandable, and if well driven, no wonder that they defeated me. So from the point of view of a player that has been at this for a long time and has invested a bunch of resources into getting those rare cars and all that, I can see how this multiplayer system would be annoying, would be unfair, would be all of that you want to say that it is. Wait a second, are we doing the exact same race for a second time in a row? Okay, so I can see that, but from a newer player standpoint, I think this is definitely interesting because, again, this is a very easy car to acquire, very easy car to start up. So the fact that they can now have some cars, or rather some of these cars that are super basic and easy to acquire, you can actually use them and be somewhat successful with them in multiplayer, it is an absolute blessing for them. So I can see also the appeal in that sense. Come on, come on, come on. All right, I passed them, but I don't know that I have the top speed to keep this lead. No, that SCG is very damn fast. It may not be agile, but that thing is fast as things are. Well played, mister, well played. So yeah, that was the SCG taking it, but I beat the Asterion, LaFerrari, Elbach, Glickenhaus, another LaFerrari, and the Asterion again. Alright, fair enough. Okay, this one I'm definitely gonna lose because there's at least 2 SCGs that I saw. And in this particular track that is very top speed oriented, yeah, I don't stand much of a chance, but I should still be able to get, hopefully, at least podium. We'll see. I think it's interesting. I am enjoying this idea of playing with different cars, with underused cars, even if that is at the expense of me not being able to drive some of those fancier cars that I've been grinding and paying and whatever for, you know? It's alright. I know that it's a mindset that you need to have in order to accept this change, and I'm really curious to see if the Switch community is going to embrace it, because the global community absolutely hated it. I don't think they were... Oh no! Alright, that's on me. Well, rip my race. The global community did not accept this at all when it was implemented, and to be fair, in the global version it wasn't super clear the pool of cars, or maybe they were and it wasn't as deep as it is over here. I think it was much more about basic cars, and while obviously this does contain basic cars, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned earlier, that the way that this is designed is so that through, I believe, 5 or 6 multiplayer series, all of the cars in the game are contained in one or another series in multiplayer. So I think it's interesting. And in fact, why don't I show you exactly how this thing is distributed, in case you don't know what it is. I should probably put a link to this image on the description too. So let's check it out. And here it is. So this is the information that Gameloft themselves provided about this, and we're currently in this, the first, what are we gonna call this? The first iteration, the first pool, I guess? Pool number 1. And you can see how they are, the cars, which cars are available. So now if we go a little bit further down, you can see this is the second pool, and you can see that the cars actually changed. Now they actually said that they made sure, and I haven't checked this myself, I haven't taken a deep look into it, but basically what they focused on doing was so that no matter which version of the pool, there was gonna be always in each one of the leagues some very easy cars to get, so that players would still, even players that haven't been playing for forever, they would still have cars to participate, so that no one is left like, oh, in this particular series you could only use super rare cars, so I cannot play. No. It's meant to be in that way. So this is the second pool. The third pool is over here. And actually I do believe that there are some cars that are going to be repeating amongst all of the pools, or the vast majority, precisely because they're the most common cars. Like right over here, every single one is going to have the Lancer, obviously, because that's the basic car. Or the Beast X, I've seen it a couple times by now. AMG GTS, wait a second, is that where we are right now? No, because I don't get to use this their own. No. So yeah, I think we're on the number 1. This is the number 4th, and finally the 5th and last one. So now it says over here, everything is subject to change based on community feedback. So this is where I think the Switch developers are taking a very good step on taking feedback from the community, because at the end of the day, it is the community who's gonna decide if they're playing this or not. And so far, I don't really know what has been the reception for this. I can tell you that I've seen less people playing overall, but I don't know if this has been a good or a bad experience. I think we need to wait until the first series ends, and maybe like that we will be able to determine if people are liking it or not. So if anything, the only way that I could think where this could be a bit more, a bit better, is if instead of 2 weeks, the multiplayer series lasted 1 week, so that the rotation is quicker. Because like I mentioned, I want to use my SE18, right? And having 5 different pool of cars, that means each one of these pools are active for 2 weeks. So I have to wait about 8 weeks before I get to play with my SE18. Then I have 2 weeks to play with it, and then I have to wait another, 8 weeks? 2 months? In order to do it. So that is the one part where I do see it being a problem. Like, oh my god, it's so long before I can use the car that I want. Well, let's say that I get to use it right now as it stands in the current pool. but once this ends, then that's it. I'm not gonna be able to play it for another 2 months. So that is my only real complaint about this entire system, that I do believe that it should be rotating a bit faster. And I understand that obviously they don't want to give, if they make it shorter, they don't want to give twice as many rewards. So what they should do, or they are probably gonna do, is cut the rewards in half, so that, well, the season lasts half as long and you get half as many rewards, so that in the same amount of time you technically could get the same as when it was 2 weeks. But yeah, that's my general thoughts on this whole thing. I am interested to continue playing it, and I'm very, very curious to see if the community is going to embrace it, because it's very cool to finally be able to play with some of these cars that never before had a chance to really shine in multiplayer. But alright, if you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Hit the like button. Also subscribe to the channel in case you haven't, because we're trying to reach 10,000 subscribers. By the time this video is out, we're definitely not there yet. So go ahead and do it for me. Just do it, please. But that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody, and stay safe. Bye-bye.